Welcome to our second summit of the National Hispanic Media Coalition's Virtual Impact Summit Series 2021. We would like to thank Univision, T-Mobile, Google, the National Association of Broadcasters, and Fletcher, Heald & Hildreth PLC for your ongoing support for our mission to build bridges, create opportunities and resources, and connect Latinx talent with the entertainment industry. We are so excited to have yet another Beto-like member join us as host. Known for his amazing fashion sense, he is an actor, content creator, and artist who has worked with countless Latinx talent across the industry. He began his career in fashion, working for celebrity photographer David LaChapelle and design icon Jeremy Scott before starting his own line. By the age of 25, he was celebrated as one of the IT designers in LA by H&M and directed a music video for Interscope Records. He produces and appears in BuzzFeed's Latinx division, Beto-like. Make sure to find him on YouTube at The Curly V Show. He can also be seen on Starz' Vida and Netflix's documentary, Mucho Mucho Amor. Please welcome Curly Velasquez.
Welcome to the National Hispanic Media Coalition Impact Summit Series Episode 2. It is I, your favorite, Curly Velasquez, and today I will be your host. I'm so happy to be working with NHMC to not only celebrate people within our Latinx community, but also people in the LGBTQ plus community. In today's installment, we will be highlighting LGBTQ plus individuals who are creating change in their community through historic achievements, education, and advocacy. I'm so proud to be hosting the speakers today throughout today's ceremony who are breaking barriers in not only film, but also television. I hope that this helps to educate people outside of our community on issues that are super important to us. So let's get started. Now let's start the show off with some remarks from our fearless leader of NHMC. She's been fighting and advocating for rights since its inception in 1986. And now, 35 years later, she's the first woman president and CEO. So let's give it up for one of my favorite people, the homegirl, Brenda Victoria Castillo. Woo!
Thank you, Curly. Today's summit topic started with a conversation I had with you about a year ago. So it's such a delight that here you are hosting this summit today. And to you, the viewers, I am thrilled that you have joined us and the rest of our team from wherever you're watching. We start off the program by acknowledging the land for which NHMC's Impact Award Summit Series is being recorded from, which is Tongva land. Today's show is an opportunity to learn, embrace, and most of all, celebrate the LGBTQ plus community. And my last message to all of you is that I got vaccinated due to love for myself and love for others. So get vaccinated so we can all come back at 100%. Enjoy the show.
Thank you so much, Brenda! I'm so excited. I'm always so happy when I see your name pop up on my phone. I definitely remember having that conversation, and I was so happy to talk to you, and I'm so happy to be here. I'm also so proud to see a powerful Latina who's not only pushing for herself, but for others in the community, because that's what it should be about. It's so dope to see that you are pushing for policies that are affecting BIPOC and LGBTQ plus folk in the community. I know that with your continued efforts, we can get more Latinx people in C-suite positions to further the growth within our own communities. I do want to say on record as well that I think it's super dope that NHMC is led largely in part by Latinas. How cool is that, America? Yes, you. I think it's so dope. I think the whole world should be run by women, to be honest, but that's just me. Anyway, so shout out to Araceli, Zachary, Felicia, Georgina, Mariana, and Paola for all the hard work that y'all do. Truly, without you, none of this would be possible. Speaking of making change, I am so excited to invite Brenda for a fireside conversation with another equally as amazing human being. A human being with a transgender policy advocacy and messaging expertise background. As a trans man, his wide-ranging experience in the LGBTQ movement has covered field organizing, leadership development, fundraising, and media advocacy. I am so honored to welcome the Deputy Executive Director of the National Center for Transgender Equality, Rodrigo Hang Leitonen. Woo! Everybody get up, clap, everybody.
Welcome, Rodrigo Hang Leitonen, to the National Hispanic Media Coalition's Virtual Impact Summit Series Fireside Chat.
Thank you so much for having me. Hello, everybody. Glad to be here.
We are so excited to have you, Rodrigo, with us today and talk about all the great work that the National Center for Transgender Equality is doing. So let's begin. Why don't you just introduce yourself and tell the viewers about NCTE's mission?
Sure. Well, NCTE is dedicated to transgender equality. I mean, we are a transgender rights organization, and our whole mission is basically to make it easier and make it safer to be transgender in the United States. This is, I think a lot of people still think of transgender issues as kind of niche, don't really know what that would really mean. But at the end of the day, it's really about ending discrimination. We do the largest and most comprehensive survey of transgender people's experiences. It's called the U.S. Transgender Survey. And we have found such rampant discrimination. And that's even heightened for transgender Latinos, Latinas, and Latinx people. I mean, we see the rates of homelessness, unemployment, everything down to being kicked out of a clothing store for being, quote unquote, in the wrong place, happening all the time to so many transgender Latinos, especially. So that's why I'm really honored to be here today and really appreciate the opportunity.
Well, you know, you've been on the policy side for transgender issues for a while, and I'm so excited to get some really good insight. You know, NHMC represents Latinos in DC, and we do our policy work, and we believe that from the White House to Hollywood, we should be represented. So I'm so excited that, you know, we're working with NCTE, and we've met you, and we're both on board for equity and representation. So let's get right into it. There's a coordinated attack targeting trans youth rights within the realm of sports. More specifically, an attempt to strip away their rights to participate in all sports. So can you tell us more or less what is currently happening locally, legislative-wise, in regards to trans people in sports? And where is this coming from, all this hate?
You know, I'm really glad you brought this up because this is coming from the exact same people who are also trying to make it harder to vote, trying to undermine immigrants' rights, trying to really attack us at every turn. The enemies of transgender people when it comes to ending discrimination are really the same enemies that a lot of us are fighting against. When it comes to the sports thing, you know, basically what these bills are trying to do is to ban transgender youth from being able to play on school sports teams. This is happening in a lot of states. It's really shocking to learn that over 30 states have introduced some version of a targeted anti-transgender youth bill this year. That is over half the country. Over 30 states have done this. As you can imagine, that sends such a heartbreaking message if you are young and trans in that state today. When it comes to sports in particular, it's really important to remember that these are kids. We're not really talking about professional athletes or even college. We're really talking about a ninth grader who just wants to play on the soccer team with their friends. And as you know, we all value fairness. Oh yeah, sorry.
It's just horrible because these are young people, and there's this horrible attempt, and it's spilled by hate to attack our youth, and yet you don't see it in the media as you should. You know, you don't see and I know you're doing great work, but I just don't see it enough. And I'm just thinking, you know, these ninth graders, you know, how's that going to affect them long term, you know?
Absolutely. I mean, when you are young, when you're in, let's say, ninth grade, you were just trying to get through the day. You were just trying to figure out who you are. You've got a lot of growing up still to do. And that is us as adults. We're at our best when we are helping young people to learn and to thrive, not putting a target on their backs. And that's what these bills are trying to do. You know, we all value fairness. We all want fairness in sports, just like anything else in life. And that's why it's reassuring to know that actually the people who really focus on this stuff day in and day out, the NCAA, school districts, the people who really know what they're talking about, have looked into this and said, hey, there's no problem with trans people playing sports. But it's really where these attacks are coming from are people who are trying to marginalize those who are already on the margins. Again, it's the same people going after us on voting rights. This is a power grab. This is an attempt to make a community the other in order to gain more votes and power for themselves. I think as Latinos, we are very familiar with that playbook already. And the opposition is just using that playbook all over again. They are copy and pasting it onto the backs of transgender young people.
So tell me some of these states and some of the legislators. I guess I want to out them.
Right? Well, the three that are really active right now are Florida, Texas, and Louisiana. Those are three states that all, as we speak, there is a bill on the governor's desk. And we are right on the precipice of either winning or losing based on that. It's still we've got a few more weeks in each of those places, if we're lucky. So, I'd really encourage everyone to go to our website, transequality.org. And you can, if you live in any of those states, because they're on transequality.org, you can go to our state action center and you can see if there's a bill in your state and write to your elected official. So Texas, Florida, Louisiana, those are where there's a bill on the governor's desk right now. But like I said, it's over 30 states that have fought this in some form or fashion. So almost no matter where you live, we need you.
And Rodrigo, very interesting. Those two states, Texas and Florida, those are the two states too that they have passed or trying to pass bills to suppress our votes. So you are right. It's the same group of people that are filled with hate. So let's talk about the mental and physical health care that's crucial for trans community overall. And I understand there's 19 states that have attempted to prohibit transition-related medical care for specifically, again, trans youth.
Absolutely, that's right. This is the other kind of attack that we're seeing over and over again in the States now, which is singling out trans youth to be blocked from transition-related healthcare. It's really important to know that transitioning means something totally different depending on the person. And that's true whether they're a teenager or whether they're an adult. So all the leading medical institutions have looked into this because, transgender people, we've been around, even if we weren't in the limelight for a while. So doctors have actually already researched this, and we've seen every single leading medical institution confirm transition-related healthcare is primary care, that it is essential care. That's the American Medical Association, American Academy of Pediatrics, American Endocrinological Society. I can never say that word right. They've all said, truly without exception, that this is essential care, even for young people. And sure, it's different. Every teenager, every young person is going to have different needs, but that's between the person and that's between the patient, the doctor, and their family. It is not the job of the government to categorically ban an entire group of people from an entire type of healthcare. And we actually expect that these bills are going to come up more often. So again, no matter where you live, we need you, because all of our common enemies have developed a strategy. They've purposefully decided to go after transgender youth as a way to shore up their own base. So we've got to fight them all.
Are there any other issues that the National Center for Transgender Equality is working on right now that we haven't mentioned?
Well, one of the other things we're working on is improving conditions in immigration detention. Our ultimate goal is actually for transgender people to not be allowed into ICE custody at all. I think really we would have no one in ICE custody. But when it comes to, the population we serve, transgender people in particular, it's shocking to learn that there are transgender women dying in ICE facilities today. Whether because they're from medical neglect, they, have a medical condition and they're not given medication, or from outright harassment and abuse. But ICE detention facilities are incredibly dangerous for anyone, especially transgender women. So we are working to prevent any transgender person from being caught in that trap, and make sure that trans people can have alternatives to detention when coming and seeking safety in this country.
So what can the average person, our viewers, do to support the transgender community? How can we support your organization?
Well, I would say, first of all, sign up with us at transequality.org. Again, we are always sending out action alerts. There's so much you can be doing in your state or in Washington, D.C., which is not a state, but it's where I live. Hey, we're working on that too. So whether you, whether on the state level or the federal level as well. We're working really hard on the Equality Act, which I should mention, it's an important non-discrimination bill. So if you sign up with us at transequality.org, we'll send you all those alerts and you'll know exactly what you can do with your elected officials, and what you can do in real time.
Well, listen, I think the world of you. Your organization is doing incredible work. NHMC is here. Well, I want to collaborate in Washington, D.C., because what happens in Washington, D.C. affects all of us in the United States. We have to make sure that we're supporting each other. So thank you for being in our fireside chat, and I'm sure we'll speak again.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to working together more.
Adios, Rodrigo.
Hasta luego.
Hi everyone, my name's Nathaniel Martinez, and I was in the 2019 NHMC Latino Scene Showcase, and that was probably one of the most exciting and best experiences in my career so far. Just not only was I surrounded by amazing Latinx talent, but I was just presented with a lot of cool opportunities that came afterwards, and just made a lot of really good connections with the industry. So I'm just super grateful and thankful for that. And also, one of the best things about NHMC is that they have a lot of representation, including LGBTQ plus representation, and which was very important to me and that I really appreciated. And I'm just really thankful that there's organizations like that who are really inclusive and just have like a safe environment for everyone.
Thank you so much to our Latinx Stream Showcase alumni, Nathaniel Martinez, NHMC. Please sign me up for the next showcase. Also, big, huge thank you to Rodrigo Hang-Leitonen. Thank you for teaching us about legislation that affects trans youth, and also just for being out there in the streets and throwing some bows for us, you know what I'm saying? And I would now like to introduce you to my good friend, a sweetheart, Dani Fernandez, who is a talented writer and actress. Dani is one of the writers in the best-selling book Good Immigrant USA and can be seen in Disney's Ralph Breaks the Internet and Sci-Fi's The Great Debate. She's currently writing for the upcoming Netflix series, The Girl on the Bus, HBO Max's More, and is currently working with HBO Max on her half-hour comedy pilot based on her own life, 1% Happy. Take it away, Dani.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to NHMC's Queer Representation in Media panel. I'm so excited to talk with two of my friends here, very, very talented writers and advocates in this community. And so I'm just going to go around. I am Dani Fernandez. My pronouns are she, her. I'm Chicana. I'm a writer, actress, and host. I've hosted a bunch of different channels that y'all might be familiar with, like E! and Disney and Nerdist, and yeah, but we're gonna get into more of our accomplishments later on. Vida?
Yeah, hi, my name is Vida Ayala. My pronouns are they, them. I am Afro-Puerto Rican, and I write comics for a living.
A lot of comics, a lot.
I live in New York City, and that's expensive, so I have to pay the bills, so I don't say no usually to projects.
And Kayla?
Hi, I'm Kayla. My pronouns are she, her. I am Afro-Latina and I am in entertainment marketing. I am a TV critic and film critic, and do all the podcasting things. If you ever want me on a podcast, I will always say yes. I do a Star Wars podcast. It is with Latinx point of view, and it's called Y Tu Banta Tambien. So very much so in the nerd space.
Yes. And speaking of doing all of the podcasts and panels, agreed to be on this panel at the last minute. So I definitely appreciate you stepping in.
Of course. No, I was excited.
So I just wanted to get started and talk about, kind of geek out about where we do feel represented? What are some of the shows or films or even comics or media that you feel like are doing a good job in the queer community?
As queer people, as queer, you know, like Latinx people, all of the above?
Oh, yeah, both.
Okay. I feel like there's a lot of strides being made in kind of the indie comic space. Just to touch on queer representation, but not necessarily queer Latinx representation. I just read The Magic Fish by Trung, and it is an amazing, amazing book. And I was in tears. It was so good. It's about a young gay kid trying to figure out how to come out to his mother, who is his best friend, and there's a language barrier there, so that's pretty great. I feel like, yeah, the indie space is where you can just kind of do whatever you want to do without as many barriers. I'm trying not to like talk about my own work too much,
You
just because I feel like I want to bring in, because I want to bring in people that don't get to be here.
No, absolutely not. Like, the NHMC was like, please promote yourselves, because we should. We are doing so much, and it's so difficult to get any of our stuff greenlit. So the fact that, you know, everyone on this panel is hustling out here to make sure that our communities are represented, like, please plug your stuff.
I was lucky enough to be able to write 2 indie books that feature queer lady leads, queer Black and Latinx leads. One is called The Wilds, and that is like the zombie apocalypse, but if it was really pretty. So instead of being like gross and dead, the zombies have flowers coming out of their face. My cat's a big fan. And and the other is called Submerged, and it is a queer brown contemporary retelling of the Orpheus and Eurydice myth set in the New York City subway system. And I know for a fact that like there's no way I could have fit that into other places.
For sure. Kayla, what about you?
It's tough because it's like Vita said, we see that they're trying to make strides, and it's only in like the indie space or in the spaces where things you have to do it yourself, or, you know, find a way to get it on platform yourself, because they're still scared to put those stories out there, especially queer Latinx stories, you know, and I appreciate the strides that have been made. I'm trying to think of like, I always go back to when Sarah Ramirez with Callie. That was for me like a like fierce, very smart, intelligent.
Grey's Anatomy.
Grey's Anatomy. Yeah, and that was, I think when that character was gone, I was like, oh, like dang, like we had something, and it was great that we had it, and I appreciate that they let them go when they felt like it was their time to leave the show. But I like want to make sure, like, because Sarah Ramirez used to go by it's they them now, so I'm trying to make sure that everyone stays cognizant when they ever speak about them in the space. But then what was nice was getting Stephanie as Rosa on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. That was also because they did a great job of, it wasn't like it was just done through a comedic lens, and it was really refreshing, where it's not like some tragic story, because all of our queer stories are tragic. And I'm like, no, and she's just, it's who she is, and she owns that, and I really appreciated that. So I think in the TV space is where I've been able to find little bits and pieces of myself where I can like identify and feel seen.
Completely. I just thinking of that too. I mean, also love Stephanie Beatrice, and love that when she came out as bi publicly, they then wrote that into the character. And it was so funny. I was talking about this with a friend, and I was like, us other bi people were like, we knew.
Yeah.
they're like, you knew Rosa was bi? I'm like, yeah, we definitely knew. But another queer character that I adore would be Harvey's character on What We Do in the Shadows.
Oh yeah.
It's another one where it's just to be comedic and hilarious and funny, and also, spoiler alert, like a vampire killer, which is dope as hell. You know, getting to have that. And again, like you said, it's not about necessarily like trauma or this horrific coming out story. He just gets to exist in this playground of vampires. And they end up giving him a huge role. Like that is something that I think is really cool, is that his character, which was kind of seen as a why am I blank? A familiar,
Yeah.
you know, an assistant, essentially, then completely flips and has like some of the most power in the next season. And so that is a storyline. I know they just finished season 3, I believe, wrapped on it. Because I follow all of Harvey's Insta posts. And so I think that that's so cool to do, and just get to exist, but like also, you know, be slaying vampires. So that's definitely one of the ones that I love his character and love him as a person.
I'm always very impressed when you can do that kind of stuff in both TV and film, because just thinking as a creator, like it costs so much more money to make movies and television than it does to do books and comics, which are that's still real money, but like like it's not the millions of dollars, right? So whenever I see something like Rosa and stuff like that, like I'm always like, all right, y'all took a chance. I mean, I think there's enough of us that spend money on things and watch things and buy things that like
really
it's a chance. But I think that it's really nice to be able to kind of casually turn on your TV and see yourself like, oh, all right, okay. So,
yeah. I wanted to say some of the other people worth noting, and as far as comics, America Chavez, I mean, when she came out, I was just like, thick thighs save lives. I mean, I was so many people tagging me in her stuff, and like, you know, it was a little wild to me because I remember one design of her came out and she looked like to me what I looked like when I was in high school, like as a soccer player, like, you know, and it was wild that people said she was too sexualized. And I'm like, no, that's just what our bodies look like. Like, and it's weird to me that when you give her an authentic body, it's seen as being sexual, as opposed to we have hips and thighs and, you know. Vita, you look like you were about to say something on that.
I was going to say, as both people in the Latinx community and also as Black people, we can't just be like, there's no. But I also find that interesting too when you look at character designs for characters, especially lady characters, right, or femme characters, where they there's a certain amount of sexualizing that is required, but it has to be in a certain way. But then if you make them queer, then you can't, you can't do it, too sexual. I'm like, oh, that's so fascinating to me. I love America though. Like that's my girl. She's a space Puerto Rican. Can't go wrong with a space Puerto Rican.
The scene where she picks up her girlfriend, I mean, we know the one. I was just like, yes, thank you. Okay, I would like to be held like this.
I love her too because she's a character that's really joyous, and even though she goes through a bunch of stuff, like she's just a really positive character. And you know, almost 20 years ago, in 2004, Renee Montoya, who is a character in DC Comics, was outed as gay, and I remember the difference there versus stuff that's happening now. And it's like Renee Montoya is like one of my favorite characters of all time. Also a Latina. I think she's Dominican. Right across the little water canal. But I really love that we're moving towards a like, yeah. Like we go through hard things and we need to tell those stories, but like she just picked up her girlfriend. Like, she flexes on panel and you're just like, I could just watch that all day.
True.
Well, yeah, I mean, like even with Renee and Birds of Prey, her being queer was just a thing, and it was like barely like, here's her girlfriend, and let's go kick some ass. It wasn't a huge thing, and I really appreciated that they kept it in. I was very nervous. I was like, oh, are they going to keep it? Like, are they going to go there? And they did. It was really refreshing to have that, and they didn't make it like a huge deal.
I feel like Rosie would have like rioted if they tried to take it a little bit. I feel like she was like, no, that movie was like super queer. I was actually like really happy about that whole, also an interracial lesbian couple, and neither is white. Great. Phenomenal. Like make it strides.
I do love the work. I mean, that DC is doing also, we're getting more characters in Harley Quinn. having Catwoman, but also having Harley and Poison Ivy, you know, being bi. And it's just like, yes, she does deal with trauma from the Joker, which is nice to see her moving away from. But if we're just speaking of queer characters in these spaces, that was one that I really enjoyed getting to see, was just these two women falling for each other. I think that was, I'm really excited for this next slate of comic book films and properties that are moving more into allowing us to have these queer stories.
Absolutely. I feel like, yeah, Harley's another one, in Ivy, where it's like their trauma is nothing to do with their queerness. Like they are traumatized, but that's separate.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
So I guess speaking on that, like, what are some things that we're kind of tired of seeing that we kind of like, you know, I've seen that, I've had that in our communities that we're kind of ready to move on from?
I think for me, it's been the hypersexualization of bisexual people, that we are flighty, we're not able to keep, you know, being a monogamous relationship. And you guys know me, I've been with my husband for 10 years. But like, also it's really nice because they make what you see in portrayals of bisexual is that the partner, if you're in a like heteronormative relationship, the partner does not understand and it's hidden, when that's not the case for me. That has never been the case. It has been championed through my entire relationship. And I've never really seen that until Stephanie's story. As Rosa, like I didn't see that was like something that was championed of like, okay, yeah, we're queer, we're bisexual. And it's not hypersexualized, and that's always been something that's really kind of hurt. Like, oh, we're flighty, and then the other friends in the queer community, in our queer groups, would dismiss our being bisexuals as saying, well, you're undecided, you don't know what you want. And it's like, no, I'm very clear in what I want. I just, you know, that's not anything that like clearly defines like who I'm going to be with. And I think that's something I'm super, I could do without that. And we've seen it in the past, and I don't want to see it again.
I tweeted and I was like, yes, hot girl summer, but also there's very few people I would let touch me. So it's like they assume because you're here that you're just, you know, sleeping with everyone, and those stories are valid and exist, but that's not all of us. To put us all under that blanket is, you know, rude.
Yes.
So I feel like we want to be able to have independence and not be judged by our sexuality, but that goes on both spectrums. So it's also where we have asexual. I'm really excited. I got to write on a show where we have an asexual character, awesome, because I feel like that's also a part of our community that often is completely misunderstood. Feared is another thing. I think a lot of people have fear around asexuality, is on a spectrum and is not represented in media. So I'm excited that show that I wrote on is going to get to exist with this character, and we're starting to see more of them. But yes, we're not all in the same, you know, sexuality and we should be able to authentically portray these characters as opposed to what people think every queer person is like.
Mm-hmm. I think for me, two things that I'm super tired of. One of them relating to bisexuality, the let's not call it that, like the like playing around with the language where it's like, oh, I'm just like, you know, like I'm not going to say the word, or pansexuality too. Like you just don't hear the words, and it's like you can say it. It's okay. You can say it out loud. There's a lot of people that fall under that umbrella. Just say it. No one will. It's not like, you know, it's not like Candyman. Like nothing's gonna happen to you. You just say it out loud. And it just drives me crazy. And the second is I'm really tired of, especially with Black and Latinx characters, with like the whole coming out and then their family just rejects them. They're just like, oh, like, and that like they have to overcome this hurdle. And it's like, that happens. Like that happens all the time. But also that's not all that we are. We're like, it's not like Black and Latinx people are super closed-minded and unaccepting. It's like, no, it's mostly the opposite. So, you know, just to have more stories where like, if you are going to do yet another coming out story, which is valid, that's fine. To have a little bit more nuance. That's another reason why I really like the Rosa story, because there was some struggle there, but her dad comes around pretty quickly and is just like, I didn't understand it and I still don't get it, but I love you, so we're gonna figure it out. And I was like, yeah, do that. Like more of that kind of feeling in these coming out stories, because I feel like it misrepresents what being part of our community is like. Every community has hardships, every community, you know, individuals and families go through what they go through, but like we wouldn't have made it if we weren't a strong community. So
yeah, no, that's very valid. I think for me, I'm tired of being the sidekick best friend like that.
Yes.
I'm exhausted by. I'm tired of being like the one-liner, you know, and not having fully fleshed out storylines where we're allowed to be flawed. I think you also need multiple queer people on a
Yes.
show. Having one queer person as a writer, this is actually the problem that you run into, is when you have one person representing that community, whether it's one singular Black character, which yes, still happens in 2021, one singular Asian character, one singular queer character. What happens is if you make them flawed and you make them, you know, they're messy, they're alcoholic, they're all, you know, those things that they should be. If you're looking at Jessica Jones as a comic book character, that is both of those things. But if you only have one, they're then representing that entire community. And so a lot of times showrunners will back away and be like, oh, well, that's, you know, problematic if I make our one singular queer character messy and whatever. And my solution to that is to have multiple queer characters.
Yes.
So you have the book nerd, you have the, you know, Trekkie, you have the alcoholic, you have, you know, you have the slutty summer hot girl, you have the one that don't touch me. And like, you're allowed to have, you know, that's why we need all of that representation, because I think a lot of times they're like, I'll just remove the character. And that's even worse, is we're losing even more representation because they're scared of being problematic, when really it's like, you have the budget, just add a couple more of us.
Yeah.
Please.
And it too, like, what Black person doesn't have other Black friends? What Latinx person doesn't have other Latinx? What queer people only hang out with straight people? To me, that is a little bit like what, like, if I was very bad in this life and woke up in a new one, that's what it would be like. Like, I'd only be around straight people. I have straight friends. I love my straight friends. I have a lot of queer friends, because you just have to sometimes be, you know, amongst other queer people and be like, they were really trying me today. Like, it just says to me. So like, whenever I see that on TV or in a book or like whatever, I'm always like, but where are their other friends? Like, like, this doesn't make any sense. So.
Were they adopted? We're not all adopted. Moving on, I wanted to ask our final question, because we have to wrap up here. This is actually a short, fun panel. What are stories that you want to see? What areas do you think that we haven't quite tackled yet, or you want to see more of in this space?
I want us to exist, not in, and it goes back to what Vita said, I want us to exist in all types of stories. I want us to exist in sci-fi and fantasy and action and thriller and just be badass, but we don't have like a tragic story, because we're just so much more than our trauma. And I think that that's what I want to see more of. I want to see how we just move and exist through the world. That's the type of, you know, just as a brown, you know, Afro-Latina queer person, I just want to be able to be like, yes, this is how we exist in this space. And it's just a part of who we are, but also like, I'm a witch, or, you know, I'm a vampire. I am all of these things in this one thing, but it's not, I'm not there just to add like a slight piece of diversity. I just want us to be able to exist within a storyline and actually move the plot. That's what I want to see us do. I want to see us move the plot and be the leads in the story. And I think that we're getting to this place where we're slowly but surely getting there, but that's what I would love to see.
Oh man, definitely. Just swap out. To me, that's the gay agenda. Just swap out all of the heterosexual protags and put in queer protags of every kind.
Yeah.
I would love to see more stories centered around parenthood, both as queer people as parents of all kinds, right? And also queer kids maybe interacting with queer parents. Like, it happens. Queer people have kids, like, and then sometimes their kids are queer. And the idea of like, what what that would be like and the challenges that you go through, you know, when you are queer and you are embarking on something that has been so aggressively, like people try to aggressively keep it heterosexual, which doesn't make sense to me. So yeah, I'd love to see stuff kind of centered around that, and also literally everything, you know, you just said.
Yeah, for me, it would be seeing more of us in genre positions, sci-fi. I'm just like gay people in space. Like that's what I want more. Bisexuals in space. That's my thing. Bisexuals in space. I want that so badly. Horror, where we're not the ones like that are dying and or experiencing trauma and or, you know, being murdered in the first 10 minutes. But the heroine in these horror movies, like that's what I want for us, is to, because I think, like you said, we're still a little bit behind where a lot of our queer stories are coming out stories. And I feel like now that we've had these and which are important, because it's important that people know what it was like for us. But on top of that, we know what it's like for us. So I think we're kind of like, you guys need to learn about this. I want to go and make stuff about space. I want to go and make my ghost stories, you know, that has two queer parents that are, you know, trapped in a haunted house that they just bought.
Co-writing this? What's going on?
I mean,
this panel is going to go co-write this.
Let's do it. Definitely have. I do have the bisexuals in space, so
love it.
You know, doing that. But yeah, I want to see more of us, like we said, kind of like with Guillermo, with Harvey, like just existing in these nonsensical worlds, in these fantasy worlds where we get to play and we also happen to be queer. And then my other one was ageism. Oh yes.
Oh yeah.
Along with your parents. That is one thing that I do really love about Pose, is those characters, some of the characters in there would be seen as being too old, you know, for Hollywood, which is wild because most of the casting is like teens and early 20s, you know, which are some of the cast, but is not all of the cast.
There's a reason for that, right? Like really quickly, I know we have like a couple of minutes, but like we lost an entire generation of queer people. And so there is a huge gap, right? Like there were people that survived that time, but there were so many that died. And so to be able to like see queer elders would be a joy. Like we need that. I don't know what it looks like when I age, right? Like, I don't have a conception of what it's like for a non-binary person to make it past 50.
Yeah.
I want to see that. I want to see, you know, so and them being happy, not all just about their sadness.
Right. Yeah. And I think just that they don't feel forgotten, or like you have to make it by the time you're 30, or you're not supposed to have your story told or be a part of this industry or be an actress or whatever. Like I'm really exhausted by that. And that is something that I am trying to change with my shows, but want to see more of, is, you know, that we are worthy of being on screen at every age. Also, Vita, you're not going to age for a very long time. You're melanin, you're protective.
Oh, I'm pushing 40 now. Oh God, I feel it in my bones.
People I can already tell are going to be like, what? Except for, we all know. We know how it is. Well, we have to wrap up. Thank you both for being on this panel and talking with me. I would love, please plug where people can find you, what you are working on, what you're allowed to share, please.
You can find me at, I go under my Catholic name. I tell people that all the time. They're like, oh, like, but your name's Kayla. I'm like, yeah, but I go under my Catholic name, so my employers don't know how to search me. It's fine. It's like how I get through the space. It's like just taking my you know, my Mexicanness and like using it to my advantage, and I appreciate it. So you can find me at Maria_Gisela, and that is everywhere on the internet. Working on a few things with Amazon right now. I also work in marketing and PR for gaming. So I love to push forward indie games, very queer, diverse games. So if you love those things, then yes, that is what you'll find with me.
I try not to be on the internet anymore, but when I am, I am on Twitter and Instagram at Definitely Vita. I'm working on, right now I'm writing New Mutants for Marvel, Children of the Atom for Marvel, Static for DC, Is there anything else that I'm allowed to talk about there? And both Marvel and DC are putting out a Pride anthology this year, and I have a story in each one. So I'm lucky. So yeah, if you just Google Vita Ayala, that's
Yes. What a
very
flex.
Yes, just Google me.
No, wait. I just meant not many people have that name. So if you see me like an afro, it's just me.
Love it. I am Danny Fernandez. I'm at Ms. Danny Fernandez on all of the socials. I am developing 2 shows right now, which is really cool, 2 TV shows. I just finished writing on a show at HBO Max and before that at Netflix. Also, these 2 shows I would get to star in. So that's really cool and something that I think they always say, if you want to see yourself on screen, write yourself. And I'm like, all right, I'm literally doing that. So getting to have more queer representation of us. But yeah, if you're like, hey, she would be great for my project, she should audition for my project, hit me up or hit my managers up. Or if you're like, I want to make a TV show for her, sounds like she's already making 2 TV shows, hit me up. So yeah, that has been our queer representation panel. Check out everything else that the NHMC is putting out this week and for Pride. So I'm really excited to be a part of this. Thank you again, both of you, for being a part of this. We'll see you later.
Thank you.
Oh my God, amazing. Oftentimes, yes, the LGBT community has to relive trauma, whether it's TV, movies, film, interviews, a bunch of things always. I hope that we do get to a time where we can just exist and be whole and full, complete people outside of trauma, outside of coming out. I want to see a love story. I want to see a comedy. I want to see a rom-com. But until then, I definitely want to thank Danny Fernandez for an amazing interview and the panelists Vita and Kayla for sharing some insight as to what they would like to see from creators. Next year, NHMC will celebrate the 20-year anniversary of its series Scriptwriters program. That means hundreds of Latinx and BIPOC writers have graduated and become equipped with the tools to navigate the industry. We've got writers in countless shows from networks like Netflix, The CW, Apple TV, ABC, HBO Max, NBC, Hulu, and so on. Here to talk about her experience in the program is Ruth Hernandez.
My time at the NHMC lab was magical. This was the first time anyone outside of the academic world had given me a yes. Come on in, learn and play with us. It was the first time ever I thought I could be a writer. I'd taken screenwriting in film school, but had never participated in a setting like the writer's room that Jeff Harris created at his house. Everyone was so generous and talented. It was so much fun and such great learning experience that I tried to emulate it in my writing classes at St. John's University. Being an HMC fellow opened some great doors for me. Right after the fellowship, I received a screenwriting residency at Yaddo, the artist colony in Saratoga Springs. That was the beginning of a string of fellowships that gave me enough cred to get an adjunct position teaching screenwriting. I'm still trying to break into television, but with the confidence that NHMC instilled in me, I'm hopeful. I highly recommend this program to anyone who wants to write for television. I wish you the best of luck.
Thank you so much, Ruth. That was beautiful. We are so excited for the incoming class of 2021. That includes April, Michael, Linda, Eli, Anna, Rolando, Desiree, Diego, Lindsay, and Samantha. You are the future of the industry, and we are so excited to see what it brings you. Our special honoree in our Impact Summit series is a proud Puerto Rican who can be seen in Netflix 13 Reasons Why, Hulu's The Bravest Night, and currently stars as Dr. Hugh Colbert on the award-winning series Star Trek Discover. He is the executive producer on the acclaimed Apple TV Plus docuseries Visible, out on television, and made history as the first openly gay actor to play an openly gay role on the series TV show My So-Called Life. He has served as Director of the Entertainment Industry Partnerships and National Spokesperson for GLAAD, as well as supporting several other LGBTQ organizations throughout his career. For his time, his devotion, and breakthroughs in the industry, continuing to be a voice for his community, the National Hispanic Media Coalition is proud to present Wilson Cruz with an Impact Award. And my heart. I love you.
Hello. I am truly grateful to NHMC and Brenda Castillo for this recognition. I'm so proud to say that my relationship with NHMC goes back many years. I recognize that this organization and I share the belief that the greatest tool at our disposal for expanding true understanding and acceptance of marginalized people, and specifically Latinx LGBTQ folks, was the media. Through its reach into American homes and culture, we could speak to the American people directly about our unique and shared experiences and convey the truth about who we are and our struggle for freedom and justice. When I began my career at 19 on my so-called life, almost 30 years ago now, I knew I was in a unique position to not only address the invisibility of LGBTQ people in our society, but to specifically address the fear and ignorance LGBTQ people faced within the Latinx community at the time. I desired to not only be a catalyst for change for queer people in this country, but to begin to address the homophobia and outdated ideas of gender in our Latinx culture. But equally important to me, at a time when the overwhelming depiction of LGBTQ people was white gay men, was the need for the LGBTQ community to embrace fully its diversity and to have that diversity reflected in how we were presented and represented in the media. All these years later, I am heartened by the progress that has been made by the generations that followed me. I'm so proud today of the ubiquity of those young people of color who grew up on Ricky Vasquez, learned from him, and took up his baton and carried it further than even I could imagine. Today, I see Ricky's influence everywhere, from the New York City ballrooms of Pose, the East LA family in Gentefied, to the suburban dreams of Love Victor, and certainly in the chosen family my Dr. Hugh Culber has created in space aboard the USS Discovery on Star Trek Discovery. I'm so proud of how far we've come, and so grateful for the work NHMC continues to do to ensure the inclusion of LGBTQ people in our stories. We are everywhere, and that was my point all along. It's proof that when we dare to be visible and vulnerable enough to share our stories and our true selves, we can truly change the world. Thank you for this, and I look forward to the work ahead.
Big congratulations to Wilson Cruz. The character of Ricky Vasquez has changed the way for many gay Latinos in the world. We are so excited to continue to see Wilson winning, always. You truly are paving the way. Since its inception, the National Hispanic Media Coalition has pushed boundaries and built bridges to help the entertainment industry to be more inclusive and accurate when it comes to showing Latinos within the United States. It not only talks to legislative makers and people in the movement, but also works with Latinx creators and kind of creates this bridge between us so that we can create more change on all different levels. The world that we want to see still exists. It's out there, but there's still so much work left to do. With each other and through our communities being together hand in hand, the NHMC can help us create that change. And it will, because it already has. I am so excited I've been included. Thank you so much for having me here today. Take care of each other out there. Make sure that you're getting vaccinated. Make sure that you're taking care of one another, because when you take care of yourself, you can take care of others. We love you. Take care of one another. Hug your abuela. Hug your mom. Say hi to your little doggy at home. Mándale saludos a la familia. Adiós, mis papitas fritas. Cuídense.